So, thank you, Becky. Hello, everybody. It's great to see you here. Thanks for coming along. This is going to be a very interesting session, as always, with these guys. We have in the panel, we have Chris Brady from Unum, Adam White from Factorydesign, Markus Höllerer from RECARO, Aircraft Seating, and Andy Jones from Acro, Aircraft Seating. And our topic today, as you can probably see from the screen soon, is seating and finding the perfect balance when it comes to fitting as many seats in the cabin as possible. There's always the dilemma, how do you also provide comfort for your passengers? And what is the perfect cabin configuration? And how can seat manufacturers help airlines to find the ultimate cabin layout? So that's it in a nutshell, really. We could start, if you'd like to tell a little bit about yourself and the companies you work for.
Starting with me.
Yes,
okay,
let's start with
you. My name's Chris. I'm 56. I have 2 daughters, 2 dogs, 1 cat. I live in Surrey in the United Kingdom, and I've been in aviation since I left school. Actually, I went to university, studied engineering, sponsored by British Airways. Left British Airways, worked for Virgin Atlantic for 10 years in the marketing department in the end. Left Virgin, had a failed attempt at starting a company in Inflight entertainment. And then in the early part of 2006, started Acro Aircraft Seating, where Andy and I worked together for a few years. And then I sold that company in 2017, did nothing for a year. Worked for the new owners for a year, did nothing for a year, started Unum, a business class seat manufacturer, in 2020. That was too long, sorry.
No, that's fine. Yes, please, Adam.
Thank you. I'll skip the family. So my name's Adam White. I was one of the founders of Factorydesign about 27 years ago, and Factorydesign's roots are in 3-dimensional design. But at the time we started, there was quite a lot of interest going on in what the opportunities were in aviation. So we quickly targeted people in aviation to become clients, and it took a decade to really build up the sort of relationships we needed with, in fact, people like Chris here. But we've specialized essentially in aviation for the last 20 years.
Thank you.
My name is Markus Höllerer, so I'm currently with RECARO Aircraft Seating already for the last 13 years, various positions, currently responsible for strategy and product management. And I've been in aviation also pretty much my entire career, so for the last over 20 years now in aircraft cabin, worked for an airline, but also for IFE suppliers, and now, as I said, for the last 13 years with Thales, with RECARO Aircraft Seating.
Okay, so I'm Andy Jones. I'm the technical director for Acro Aircraft Seating. Unlike some of the panel, I have sort of taken a circuitous route into seating, starting off as an engineer designing engines in the automotive industry, then motorbikes, industrial equipment, and eventually falling into aircraft seating for a subsidiary of Virgin Atlantic called Reynard Aviation. We were doing upper class seating. I think Chris may have had a hand in that at its origin as well. I then left the industry and actually did miss it. It's weird how it gets its hooks into you. So came back and joined Acro a few years later, and through the transition that Chris Brady mentioned earlier on, being taken over by our new owners, and latterly moving into technical director role.
Thank you, Andy. So if we begin the discussion on this session, if we think about the basic main considerations when planning cabin layouts, of course there's different sorts of airline models. You've got your low-cost carriers, you've got your major carriers, regionals, charter flights. So there's quite a lot of different considerations, I suppose, for different types of airlines. If we start discussing that, let's start with low-cost airlines. Obviously, profit is definitely, I guess, one of the main considerations for them because of the ticket prices.
So perhaps I'll kick off on that one. So Acro has quite a strong presence with some of the low-cost airlines, not solely and uniquely those, but we certainly have many clients in that space. We see even within that sector, there's quite a diversity of expectation. So one airline will prioritise pax width over aisle width, another one the opposite. And they've got very firm views, some of them, around what's important, what suits their operating model. We're positioning ourselves now to try and be versatile and be able to support different solutions in that cabin space.
Yes.
I mean, the total number of seats on a single-aisle aircraft is limited. By design, there's a 737, 189. You can't have more than that by regulation. So there's a limit to the number of seats the airlines can fit on the plane, and low-cost carriers tend to run towards that limit and get as many seats on the plane as possible, and that in turn drives the seat pitch. And then the seat manufacturer's job is to say, well, if I've got that much seat pitch, that much space, I've got to fit two things in that space. I've got to fit a seat and a person, and what proportion of which do I give to whom? Yeah. And that's the trick. Where with people like Adam here, and Adam and we've worked together for 15 years. Factory head design was instrumental in creating Acro's suite of products.
And I would say the kick-off for us, whether it's the latest, most luxurious first class or a low-cost seat, the kick-off is how is whatever it is we're working on going to be made, and how can it best be made, and in a way, and it was interesting for me that in our office we've got the original seats that Chris talks about, and a lot of the philosophy for those seats matches the philosophy for a pair of the last flown Concorde seats that we designed, and both of them were approached with absolute rigor about taking weight out of the product, and the visual impact on that was that historically seats would be a frame and padding and trim panels and cushions and then some more upholstery, but the essence of the Acro's first seat was that every single part had to do every job. It had to perform, pass certification, look good, so there was no covering up. And those were exactly the criteria we applied to the Concorde seat.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Markus? At RECARO, when you supply to low-cost carriers, what are your sort of initial discussions with them? Anything specific that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, definitely even there with the low-cost carriers, there are differences depending on the region and depending on the background of the airline, and so it's absolutely important to engage there early enough and come up with a solution which really fits to the customer. And I mean, we have seat models in the portfolio where we would say they are running well in a certain market, but not in the other. So there are certainly quite some differences there as well. And for us, then it's really having that that customer centricity, that customer focus to together work on a solution which really fits well into their operating model and to their business model.
Yes, brilliant. And then if we move on to the sort of major carriers, obviously they have business class, premium economy. So here, obviously, it's a very different sort of proposition and perspectives that they need to consider. Chris, would you like to start maybe with the business class seating?
Yeah, well, I think sort of the business class seating seems to have settled down a little bit in the last 4 or 5 years. I think lie flat seats were invented around about the turn of the century, and British Airways first class was 97?
97, and then business, followed by business.
Yeah, in 2001, I think 2000. And then there's been a decade of innovation, airline-driven innovation, where the airlines would typically go and give Adam a job and say, we want the best seat in the market, the best passenger experience you can possibly do. And a lot of there's probably a handful of carriers, you can name them. It's the Singapores, it's the Emirates, the Etihads, the Cathay Pacifics, who drove a lot of innovation and lots of change in the layout of business class seats and in real genuine innovation throughout 2010, 12, 15. It's kind of settled down now. There's still a few outliers, but generally business class seats have settled down into outward-facing herringbones on wide-body aircraft now. You've got outward-facing herringbones and offset staggers, and they're all basically a 45-inch pitch. In the way that an economy seat, 29-inch pitch is kind of the median pitch, is the normal pitch for an economy seat, and 45 has sort of emerged as that reference standard for business class. And my experience of the airlines at the moment is they're content with that 45. They're not looking for more density. Almost, if you offer them a seat that fits in at a slightly smaller pitch, it must be worse than the normal ones. So I think after a lot of turbulence, business class has settled down onto a normal seat pitch, 45 inches.
I mean, I have to say we completely agree with that. Our observation is for a few years, the industry has become very happy with the architecture. And before that happened, we were experimenting with lots of different configurations, and quite a few of them have flown. But now the key architecture's established, and it's privacy, comfort, and stowage that tend to be the headline acts with a new seat.
And I think weight has always been a big thing in the aviation industry, and economy seats in particular.
Yeah.
Weight and price. And business class have been indulged. I think they've been allowed to be quite heavy because it's a luxury thing and we can afford it. But I don't think we can afford it anymore because weight is not being measured in the cost of fuel. Weight's now being measured in the amount of carbon that burning that fuel generates. And I think business class seat manufacturers are going to see 45-inch pitch as the nominal pitch. That's the space you've got to design in. And there will be, and there should be, a lot of pressure for us to make these seats lighter.
Yes.
I can fully agree there with Chris. So that's what we see as well. So weight is becoming more and more a topic there in business class. But we also see then that I wouldn't fully agree that the industry has settled now entirely. I think with business class, there's definitely more and more requests coming in when it comes to certain features in business class plus or different front rows. In the business class cabin, due to the fact that first class is
dead.
Mostly, at least on most of the routes, definitely. So I think there's more a bit of an appetite back again to have some differentiation in the business class cabin, and I think also what you said. I think when it comes. It also a bit driven by the industry itself and by the certification rules and the complexity, how complex it is to certify a business class seat. That there is also some hesitance with some airlines to really be very brave on it and to really do something new and very innovative because they know what can happen then. We have various examples out there.
Of late heavy seats.
Late heavy seats, exactly. So I think that's a bit of the challenge there. And it's not getting easier now in the current environment, I would say, when it comes to certifying.
Well, I think it's probably a judgment on the business class seat manufacturers, isn't it? That we don't carry their confidence anymore because they've so much experience of us being late and heavy that they're really cautious. And then it's been interesting to see the next couple of years if the global economy continues to recover from the pandemic as it is at the moment, whether there's animal spirits are up and there's lots of money pushing around, whether we'll see another wave of innovation. I don't know.
Yeah, I have to say I say that it's kind of standardized now in terms of the basic architecture. I am intrigued to see what will happen if the possible trend for an analog style business class seat, one that doesn't need to convert from a seat to a flat bed. There's a lot of mechanism, a lot of cost, a lot of weight, and a lot of development time. But no one needs to persuade you when you're at home or in a restaurant or in a comfortable hotel that your seat has got to change shape. but we expect it to in business class, and there's been a recent player with a fixed type product. I think I would love to see more acceptance of that and more development to make a seat that doesn't need to have however many kilos, you guys would know better than me, of mechanism to convert from sitting up to lying down.
Yeah.
But even as an interim step towards that, I think if we talk about competing priorities, finding the right balance, airlines operating costs and cost of maintenance, cost of carrying the weight of an electrical actuation system in this category of seats, increasingly, and we're more active in the premium space than business class, but the interest is much more focused around mechanically actuated seats rather than electrical.
Yeah.
Yes, it's yes,
I
certainly.
think it's an early. I think I'm very keen on that.
Yeah.
So we did work right at the end of my career at Acro. We looked at doing a business class seat and called it solid state, because it didn't
Solid
move.
state, yeah.
It was going to be lighter. I know that the Finnair did a solid state seat, which I think has been quite
Yes,
successful
I've
with
experienced
passengers.
it actually.
It's good.
Yes, it's very good. Very
It's
good.
not light.
Yes, Collins. No, probably not.
It should have been, but it wasn't.
You're right, it should have been.
It should have been, but wasn't.
But perhaps that was the start,
No, exactly. And I think if there's a broader trend in society to start unplugging and stop being obsessed, as I am, with my weekly screen hours report I get each week, I'm horrified by. If we do start to unplug and start to deconstruct, it'd be interesting to see whether passengers allow us to do that, though, or passengers allow the airlines to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have
And it
to
might be how the airlines split. There might be an analog bunch of airlines.
and that would be a brilliant split. And we spend from a design side, we spend all our time thinking about passengers, and that's what we are. We're closer to passengers than manufacturers in some respects. So we're interested in what drives them. And of course, the last couple of years, all the drivers have been post-COVID when you couldn't. Now the drivers are, if you're going to, why are you doing it, and are you making the best choices? And so if you had an analog, a seat with only analog product, that would be, I think a lot of people would be quite inspired. Well, this airline has got a ship set of seats half the weight.
Yeah.
Literally,
Well,
if it was done.
As Gen Z start becoming business class travelers,
Absolutely.
all the incentives are going to shift.
Yeah.
Our children are profoundly different.
They-
Many of them
yeah.
in this room are profoundly different from me, and change your outlook, and that's going to affect us all, isn't it?
No, I think so. And the significant thing is to be thinking about that before they're trying to buy that ticket, so that we can,
Yes.
be prepared and have the right products, as you say, that are light enough and performing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to social spaces on aircraft, I know airlines like Virgin Atlantic, they have the loft, which
loft, yeah.
actually Adam, your company has worked
designed, yeah.
on. But of course, it comes with the cost of not having as many seats. But do you think it's worth it to have these wonderful, but eventually
100%, yes.
actually quite
Do you know-
spacious solutions?
I think I absolutely think it's an important, and moreover, it should be an economy. We're
Yeah.
seeing longer and longer routes flown. It is actually extraordinary that airlines can, because of course, ideally for the crew, you stay in your seat. But for a
Yes.
20-hour flight, particularly in economy where you're in a 30-inch pitch, at a push, it's literally unhealthy to do that. And I think we've worked on all sorts of social spaces for a long, long time. And actually, I've seen a bit of a decline in interest in the last, let's say, 2 years. The focus has been much more about the hero seat product. But I think that airlines have almost a duty to be offering some sort of social space. And you can use cross aisles, etc. If you can create a galley, perhaps that partly can be closed away to open up when the crew don't need it for a midpoint in the flight, you can provide somewhere for people to go. And I think more effort needs to be put into that.
That's actually a very good point, I think. It's so important, especially on long-haul flights, to be able to move and, prevent all those things that they scare us about with the thromboses and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting point.
So we end up with a bigger canvas, do we? So instead of, because generally speaking, sea manufacturers deal with the spaces between the galleys, the monuments we call them, don't we? And you want to draw up the bigger canvas, include those spaces.
So for us, the best possible program is inclusive of seats, but it's about the entire cabin experience. And when you look at the entire cabin experience, there are spaces on the aircraft that you can't put a seat in. And whilst historically it's either passenger or crew, you can make those spaces work. And there are some incredibly good manufacturers showing here at the moment who create all sorts of galley parts and lavs, etc. And those things can change. You can be a bit clever with it. In fact, if you just think of the revolution that there was when British Airways brought out a seat that became a flat bed, that was an innovative piece of mechanism. And if we could apply that level of thinking to the fixed monuments, we can change the shape of the plane during flight. And that would be my big ambition.
Mm-hmm. Yes, great. Shall we talk a bit about single island wide-body aircraft and how things change here, because obviously you have a much narrower space to work with, and now that this aircraft, they fly much longer distances. Obviously there's lots of developments with the narrow body business class seating, and I think you're probably all taking it into consideration now. And
I was talking to an airline this morning about that. The single aisle range, these new aircraft are driving a different set of problems, which is that you buy yourself a business class ticket from, I don't know, Singapore to Doha. You fly your 11 hours, and you get another 5-hour flight from Doha to Tel Aviv or Istanbul or something, and you come out the first bit on a flat bed, the second bit in what's effectively a premium economy seat, and the passenger is not happy, profoundly unhappy. And then, so obviously it's okay, so that's a simple solution. Let's get a lie flat bed on the single aisle as well, tick. And then the next layer of problem is then, well, how do I make that experience consistent? Your passenger experience director at the airline wants those seats to look and feel the same and have the same amount of side stowage, an equivalence in experience. And there's a bit of pressure now on us to come up with seats that work on those single aisle aircraft with the very different geometry you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And a cousin or a sibling, a brother or sister of that seat that also works on a twin aisle.
Yes, great. And anyone else? Any thoughts?
From our perspective, I think it actually changes now a bit due to the fact that single aisle aircraft have a much longer range. We see also more products now, more comfortable products finding their way into a single aisle cabin. So the variance of seats which can or should be installed on a single aisle aircraft definitely has increased. And even us, we see a lot now of our R3 product, which is the economy long range seat with the in-seat video. That's now heavily popular on the single aisle as well, where you had, I would say, like 5-10 years ago, you had occasionally an airline which had installed a seat type like that on a single aisle aircraft, and now it's more common now. And definitely you need the right products for it, but also I think for the entire industry, supply chain, and also for the OEMs, they have to cater also for the complexity of the products. For also then when it comes to installation of the products, when it comes to getting the cabins ready then for delivery, it takes up more time. For sure than it used to in the past.
Struggling, aren't they? So the final assembly line, it takes, I don't know, let's say it takes a day to put all the seats into a low-cost carrier, but it takes 4 days to put the seats in with business class at the front, IFE at the back, and it's disrupting the Airbus final assembly line as much as anything else.
I think from a passenger point of view, exactly as Chris said, you might be doing a journey that involves a couple of different aircraft type, but I'm as a passenger, I don't care. I don't care. You know, as long as I get in it and it's got wings, I want the experience to be transferable. I want a seamless journey.
Yes.
And when we saw the long-range aircraft narrow body appearing, 6-7 years ago, whenever it was, more robustly by airlines, there had to be a business class product, and that allows you to join up the experience, which is important for passengers.
I think actually it's interesting because if you come down to our standard sit on aisle seats, sit on our single aisle seat, it's bigger than the wide body, because you've got the single aisle has got a single aisle down the middle, and it has to be there for regulatory reasons. So you're left with the space that's previously allocated to a triple seat, which is about 60 inches wide, and that's more space than's on the wide body. And in some ways, I wonder whether we'll see the single aisle becoming more widespread and driving the space up on the wide bodies. Maybe a 45-inch pitch is going to have to go up, because I'd much rather fly on an A321LR from London to LA with only 180 people than on a 777 with 350, with all of the boarding time and the complexity, and the seat's bigger.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think
point.
the A321 long range and the XLR is profoundly going to change the industry. Not just the seating, it's going to change which airports operate as pairs.
Yeah.
You know, you would fly Bordeaux to Buffalo, won't you? And you'll have I think a better overall experience, and certainly different seats.
I think we're seeing more opportunity behind the business class section as well, in terms of differentiating those different subcategories between business class and economy at the back, and finding opportunities to offer more, whether that's features or pitch or different elements of the seating environment for those passengers in the intermediate classes.
Yeah, I mean, you'll end up with, if you've got a premium economy on a long haul flight, to twin aisle, you'll have to have an equivalent on the single. In particular, because Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays are busy days on the planes. Wednesdays are dead. Saturday night's dead. So you might have an A330 operating on 3 days a week, and an A321 2 days a week. So you really can't have a difference in passenger experience.
No.
So therefore, you're going to be selling PY seats. Both of you will be selling PY seats to single aisle aircraft.
Oh yes.
You already are, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. True.
Great.
So there.
And then, so we've been talking about the weight, obviously, which, the lighter the product, the more profitable it is for the airline. Then there's also the consideration of sustainability. So how much do you think that comes into the factors for airlines choosing products? Would they rather, so if you think about comfort, profitability, sustainability, how do they prioritize?
Well, it's changing, isn't it?
They're all different for one. So
Yes.
as we say, I think each airline's customer base and their brand values are aligned to sustainability increasingly, of course, but the weight they put on that and how they assess that in competition with other priorities like comfort and the entire experience is always different. So we just need to understand that with our customers a bit better. I think there have been moves with the Eco-Efficiency Index with Airbus that have been really positive in terms of trying to make that transparent in terms of the eco-credentials for competing products in the market. So that's, I think, something that's going to gather momentum.
Tell us more about that. What is it?
So Airbus have a rating scheme where they've taken empirical data from economy seat manufacturers, and they've essentially baselined it and assigned a rating. So
About the seat, as in how much carbon's in this seat.
Largely around weight. So they've done some analysis that says that weight is the key
dominant
driver.
factor. Yeah.
Well, I think, sustainability, when we're talking about that, there is the empirical, there's the data, there's the weight, there's the reality. But as we touched on a minute ago, there's the driver from passengers, the analog versus digital, I think the younger flyers are going to become increasingly influential with how an airline wants to manage its new product development. And frankly, we've always been aware of sustainability and have always been aware of things that can be recycled, etc. It goes back throughout my career, if you like. But it's only the last few years that it's become actually something that could almost be built into every RFP, as in every time you are asked to pitch for a program. We've seen in the last year and a half, I think ago, it was the Green Cabin Alliance being created, which essentially is a group of more and more businesses like ours who have joined together to share information about how we can create a more sustainable project. Of course, the sort of other side of that has been we've had a good few years now of greenwashing, where airlines get an incredibly wonderful bamboo amenity kit or cutlery or something and talk about their credentials. But it's a much bigger and more valuable side of a design program and indeed of a manufacture program, because it relies on all of us to deliver something.
Yes.
And I think from my perspective, certainly what needs to happen is also change in the industry, that from my perspective the sustainability should also be visible in the cabin. I think today with the materials we are using, it's not so. We are trying at RECARO to push at our end, obviously introducing more sustainable materials, but it also with that there comes some, for example, some anomalies like in surfaces, for example, which you would need to accept then also in the end, if you want to be innovative there and get those materials in. I think this is not happening yet. I think the pressure will rise there. You do not only should see the sustainability facts and figures as a marketing material, but really should be able to touch and feel it in the cabin. And I think that's where we're not there yet.
Yes.
We on our end, we're working on it, and we have some concepts there we're showing, and we're introducing also this year some sustainable materials. But I would say we also need then the customers and the airline to really select it and really be up for it.
For them to be aligned, and visibility. So the language of premium classes historically was the bigger the better. I mean, the first class years ago was like a huge folded mattress. You could almost feel the weight that existed in it. Whereas the language of, one of the languages of sustainability is lightness. So somehow we need, for the visibility of a light and delicate structure, to have the same premium values that 20 years ago a folded mattress had.
Well, I think this is one space where less is more.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
actually, to give Chris credit, when Chris founded Acro, some of the values there that persist today are around stripping it right back. So every feature of the seat has to earn its keep and to play its part. And we try and take away everything that's superfluous on the seat. Every time we succeed in doing that, that's less resources being used to manufacture the product, to transport it to the factory, and through end of life throughout the use of the seat. So if we can get back to that kind of core philosophy, then I think we're on the right track.
I think there'll have to be some changes in the way we do business as well, not just in the product. The product must change exactly as you're describing, but when that RFP comes out to say we want to buy some seats from you, airlines, give us your price and your weight, we're able to do that in two commonly understood units, kilograms and euros, or dollars maybe. And then they say, how sustainable is your seat? And we start mumbling. Then we start talking about the latest environmental material we've got.
Yeah.
And there's no way to compare whether I am greener than you or you are greener than him. It's impossible. And that's a problem we've got to fix. I think as a society, I think our Gen Z offspring will solve the problem of valuing lightness for us, because they will genuinely value things that are sustainable, and sustainable less is more sustainable. But the best thing is not to have anything. That's the best way of avoiding, the environmental impact. You can't have nothing, because with nothing we don't exist. So we have to have something, and that something has to be sustainable and circular. And I think the aesthetic will change. The passengers will drive that change for us, or alongside us, or we'll influence each other.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's all about moving on. It's all about sort of redefining what at the front of the aircraft, where the heavier seats are, redefining what luxury, privilege, etc. means, because it was a very long time ago that there was that the sort of beautiful modernist design showed that you can manufacture extremely light products.
We're sitting in one.
Very absolutely, very honestly, without all of the upholstery of a gentleman's club.
Yeah. Anyway, they'll end up being a currency. There'll be a currency of, or commonly understood. So we have accounting standards, the generally accepted accounting practice gap, that allow us to tell whether a company's profitable or not. There'll be something similar to tell us how much carbon's in his seat, my seat, and your seat. Yeah. And then that will be in the RFP.
Great, thank you. And then when we're thinking about comfort for passengers, it would be great if you could all share one innovative feature or product that your company has designed, and how does it improve the comfort on the flights.
Well, I think for me it'd be a principle. If we're going along, we're going along?
Yes, let's do this way. Unless you want to start, Andy.
I'll go first.
Let's start with you.
Yep. I'll keep one of yours back for you. So it was yours. So the our latest PY seat, premium economy seat, we've really prioritised for wide body, where normally there's a leg structure right where you want to put your feet in the foot space. We've changed the seat structure entirely so that area is completely free and affords that space back to the passenger, and they can obviously, comfort is your next position, I think, Chris.
The most comfortable position is the next one.
So it allows you that space to move within the seat.
Right. Markus, what would you say is the most sort of innovative feature?
So I would pick there from us, I would pick our new premium class seat, they're the R4, and we actually we designed the seat around the passenger. So we started with the passenger and also with the table position, and we wanted to really bring a premium experience there for the passenger. So it was a must for us to start there with a single plate table rather than the usual bifolds you see there in the industry. So, and obviously when it comes, I would say, a proper single plate table, it needs a certain size, and to stow that away efficiently, that really impacts then the actual entire seat design. So we started with that, and then designed the seat around it, and we're showing it this year, and it's also, we have some multiple projects now running with that seat as well, where we're very proud of. It's not flying yet, but it's going to be soon, flying soon, and it's a great experience and really makes a difference, and gives you a more premium feel to it than what we had there in the past.
Brilliant.
Rather than a specific seat, I would kind of hark back to my complaint about the old heavy stuffed mattress that would be covered in many cowhides and very leather and shiny and squeaky. And of comfort, I think the recognition that cloth, beautiful wool cloth, is so much more comfortable, that breathes, and soft materials generally. I think we're seeing more and more, when we're sitting, particularly in business, let's be honest, or first, what used to be described, leather was the language of luxury, but actually now it's the language somehow of economy class as an easier, clean kind of environment. And what I'd like to see is excellent tailoring on a seat.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually. Good point.
So for me, again, it's about principles, and I suppose a couple of examples of how they're deployed. So I think seats can't be comfortable. Only people can be comfortable. And therefore the comfort's found in the spaces between the seats. So I'm a big fan of less seat, which is consistent with the less is more thing you've all been talking about. And to enable passengers are people most of the time, enable people to do what they want to do. So enable, not tell. So for example, our seat mechanisms, got electric motors, like a lot of them, it goes down into bed, and you press the bed button and down, down it goes into bed. And you can stop halfway. And in most seats, you can go back up, or you can keep on going. In ours, we said, well, we've got these electric motors. Why don't we control them individually now? So I can be sitting like this, watching TV, 7 hours back from Los Angeles, 5 hours still to go, and you really want to move, and you can just press another little button and just move the seat pan up. So I can't do it now, but you can imagine, or a leg rest, and you just move the leg rest. And I can control the buttons, control the actuators individually. So that's just consistent with this idea of the next position is the most comfortable one, and enabling and not prescribing.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, yeah, that's all actually really good insights, and I think we just ran out of time, but we could have some questions from the audience, if there are any.
I have one, if that's okay.
Yes.
I'm Becky from Inflight magazine. We've seen some what have been labelled as disruptors come into the market, some of your words from last year, like Chaise Longue, who have that sort of outside-the-box thinking with their double-decker seats. What are you doing as individual companies to strike a balance between comfort, cost, sustainability, but also being a little bit innovative and outside of the box?
Tough question.
Well, can I jump in with a seat that we had the genuine privilege of working on for a new airline, Bermudair. 2 small Embraer aircraft launched last autumn. We sat down with them a year and a half ago, and they said, we've got a pair of the aircraft came with economy seat pairs, just 2 pairs. And we talked around, and the idea came up that by taking away one of the outboard seat, we could create a piece of furniture that went around that seat and turned it into essentially a business product. And from a kind of sustainable point of view, or from that whole side, it's been the case for a long time that seats can be reused and recovered, and in terms of the circular economy, that reuse is great. But what I loved about the Bermudair product was that it changed class as well. And for the manufacturer, of course, the seat existed with certification. The device, the separate part we made that sat on its own mountings, meant that it wasn't necessary to recertify the whole seat, just a certification on that additional part that made it a business class product. So sometimes you work on a program that is very straightforward and simple, but has got a hell of an idea behind it.
Yes, that sounds great. I would love to be on that flight soon.
I'm looking for. I want to try it. Yeah.
Yes. Any other questions?
Is this on? Yes. Hi, Jennifer Clay. I'm your next moderator, by the way. But hearing so many things from the panel, what about the Air New Zealand product, the bunk beds at the higher level in economy class? Do you see that as something that's going to drive the industry ahead, or do you see it as a one-off special deal? What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be a one-off. I think, but when I used to work at Virgin Atlantic, the commercial department, we used to have loads of ideas for stuff like that. And the commercial department said, the trouble is, Chris, economy passengers in particular, shift airlines for $1. And we all do it. I know I do it. I'm going on to EasyJet looking for your flight to Mallorca, and it's like, well, that one's 2 hours earlier, and I'll change for $1. And I'll go to the airport and spend $30 on stuff you didn't want to buy. So there's a problem with the system, I think, in that the way in which we distribute airfares, that's not a problem, it's a feature, it's a characteristic, you shouldn't fight against it. So I think there'll be a small number of carriers who are prepared to invest some of their profits in building their brand in order to grow more profits. I don't think that's a product in the sense that it can be sold many times.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I see it as a niche. I mean, it's a valuable and brilliant idea, but in all of the years we've been designing aircraft seats, the hardest area to innovate is economy, because economy seat manufacturers, as I'm aware, a bit like Henry Ford, they make it this way, and that's what they like, because it's a volume product. The joy of premium, particularly in first class, is they're artisan made almost. Their craft is extraordinary with some of the makers, and that's a hell of a difference for scale.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, it's the layouts in economy we have right now, they are the most efficient ones, because otherwise there would be already a different one, but there's a reason why there is not in the, I would say, in the normal economy, and this really works best. Also from a not only passenger and economical perspective, but also from a certification perspective, because I think you don't want to bring in there more complexity to the layout and take more time to certify a layout than it is right now.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly complex system in aviation. If you think about the premium economy seat, was invented either by Virgin Atlantic in 1994 or by Eva Air the same day, but it's taken 25 years to become widespread, and that's because the global distribution system has a part to play, corporate travel policies have a part to play, the fact that we buy different journeys that involve more than one airline have a part to play. It's an incredibly complex system. It's not just about the seat or the idea, it's a system that you have to...
Yeah.
A huge inertia in that system. And certification's a big part of that inertia. We've got to go now, I can tell.
Yes, I think we ran out of time.
This is they turn the lights on. So it's like a nightclub, isn't it? The lights come on at the end.
Here we are. Thank you so much. It's been a great discussion, and thank you to the audience as well. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.